Welcome to another episode of the Best You podcast, where we teach you the healthy habits you need to look and feel like your best you. Today, we're diving deep into the world of nutrition with our special guest, Brian Sanders, who is a filmmaker and nutrition expert. Brian is the creator of the yet-to-be-aired docuseries called Food Lies, where he uncovers the history of the processed food industry and explains why animal protein is the foundation of human nutrition. In this episode, Brian's going to break down the critical nutrients that you can only get from animal protein, and he shares a simple yet powerful way to think about food, distinguishing between food as nutrients and food as energy. By the end of this conversation, you're going to have a much clearer understanding of how to simplify your diet and optimize your health. But before we dive in, don't forget to hit the follow button on the Apple Podcast app and on Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, then make sure you hit the like and subscribe button down below so you never miss any of the future episodes coming out to continue to inspire and motivate you and provide you with actionable insights to become the healthiest version of yourself. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best You podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by the one and only Brian Sanders. Brian, I've been really looking forward to this conversation for a long time. I think that being able to address certain nutritional issues, farming issues that some people believe to be true but aren't true, I'm just really excited to dive into a lot of different things today because you are basically working on this docuseries that you just have finished episode 1. You're working on getting it out there so everybody watches it. You know, a lot of people have watched a lot of the nutrition docuseries that have been on Netflix and other platforms and stuff like that, and they can heavily influence us, and they can heavily change the way that we believe about nutrition and act upon nutrition, and so many of them are throwing false propaganda on us. And so I'm really excited to learn more about what you've been working on and your beliefs and stuff like that. I know that you believe that, we've been lied to for decades by the food industry, and you've had a lot of curiosity to really get down to the truth of things. I believe I have it right that a number of years ago, your mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Your dad had cancer. Both of them have passed away. And so that kind of kick-started your curiosity even further around nutrition, because they kind of thought that they were maybe doing the right things, but maybe they could have been doing better or whatnot. And I kind of read that you have 4 different things that you believe to be true. The first one is animal foods are the foundation of human nutrition. Number 2, processed foods are the actual enemy. Number 3, we need to fight against the plant-based agenda and propaganda. And number 4, ruminants like cattle raised properly help the soil and the environment. So I kind of want to go back to the first one of animal foods are the foundation of human nutrition. So kind of run with that idea. Why do you believe that? And what kind of animal foods do you believe are best and that we should be eating regularly?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good little recap of my beliefs. Animal foods have always been the cornerstone of the human diet. It's always been what humans have been after. The number one goal for 99% of human history, 99.9, has been to acquire animal foods. Up until the last 100 years when the propaganda started, that's the first time in history where it hasn't been our number one goal, and we've started to question that. And actually, in the series, I'm working on that script right now for episode 3, when we're talking about, well, why would it, where did we go wrong with this idea? It's always been the foundation. We know that it's the healthiest food we can eat from just simple science. Nutrition science is pretty easy. You can just look at meat. Red meat is the most vilified food, yet it's the healthiest food for humans. We just can look at the protein, vitamins, minerals, everything about it is pure nutrition. People can survive on just that. It's pretty much the only food in the world that you can just survive solely on, because it has everything. Yet some people say it's bad. Why would this be? It's insane. And no one thought it was bad. I mean, still 90%, I think about 90% of the world hasn't gotten this propaganda yet. There's 8 billion people in this world, right? So there's a lot of people that they're still out there. You're talking about how many billion people in China? They're just out there trying to get meat, right? That's all they care about is, can I afford meat today? They know that this is a sign of wealth and health, and they work long hours to acquire it. And so just in the westernized places is this, changed, and it's because there's a lot of actually religious influence back with the Seventh-day Adventists in the late 1800s. That changed into even the Kellogg. If you heard the Kellogg story, he was trying to like reduce sexual urges and masturbation by developing cornflakes, and his idea was that avoiding meat would help you be more pure, and it's this whole Seventh-day Adventist thing. And that's a long story there. There's also the back to the 50s, President Eisenhower had a heart attack, and we were trying to figure out what was going on because more and more people were having heart attacks. What was really happening is more and more processed foods or seed oils, right? That Crisco started in the early 1900s, and all these shortenings and different fake fats. But people were smoking, right? So it's pretty obvious that it was these new processed foods and smoking. But there's this whole story about Ansel Keys, the McGovern report, McGovern committee that said that saturated fat was a problem when completely not true. So I'm not going to go into all these details, but quickly, then came the hippie movement. Then these people started bringing the environmental thing, and they're trying to say that cows are bad for the environment, so we shouldn't eat meat because we already thought that it wasn't healthy, right? Because of this bad science. Then we think that it's bad for the environment, and then they say it's bad ethically. So as you go throughout the years, there's just more and more. I call it propaganda because I think it is. It's right. It's purposeful disinformation about against meat. And I think it really comes back to the big interests at play. It's big food, big pharma. These big systems are sitting fat and happy from all the money they're making because this whole thing started back in the 50s where if saturated fat and meat are supposedly bad for you, then you have to have other food products that don't have those. So this is the beginning of the processed food industry in a way bigger way is, well, they took fat out of all the things and you have to add back in sugar or refined grains, refined everything. And then you just come to now where we have ingredient lists that are 30 ingredients long on food products. And then they say, oh, well, it's low fat, it's still good. Or, they make all these health claims when it's just based on bad information. So to answer the question again, red meat, animal foods, eggs, stuff with cholesterol, right? Butter, these like kind of basic foods that are perfectly healthy and what we've always eaten have the most nutrients, scientifically, the most bioavailable nutrients, right? This is also basic science that we can access these nutrients and proteins a lot better because they're more bioavailable and we can digest them easier and put them into our own bodies. And yeah, I just think there's this big kind of war really of information that's preventing people from knowing this.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it from both angles. First off, I appreciate you giving like kind of different points in history where the table started to turn or the conversation started to turn. Is that just real quick? Is that like some of the things that you guys cover in the will cover in the documentary, like kind of the turning points in history and stuff?
So this is 10 years of research. This is me going around to hundreds and hundreds of doctors, scientists, conferences, books, studies, just everything that I could possibly get my hands on and putting it into 6 episodes so that people can understand why do we believe this? Why? Because we're kind of saying that everything is wrong about nutrition. And it takes a lot to undo that. So we do start with human history and why humans require meat and why our bodies changed because of the high nutrition of meat and animal foods. And we go through the bad science and all the things that we've got wrong over the years. We start explaining actual nutrition and food and how it works in our body and diets, why we get sick, these big questions. And we end with the environmental factor and ethical factors. So we do explain why it's not what the vegans say it is, and that cows, cattle, ruminants, bison, anything like that, like sheep, goats, they're good for the land. So
well, let's talk about it from both these perspectives. Let's talk about it from the health and the environment. Let's start with the health thing. I feel like the main reason why maybe red meat is vilified as like saturated fat and heart disease or whatnot. What is like, from your perspective, how do you explain to somebody who believes red meat is bad because of the saturated fat, Like, what's the argument against that?
Well, we've always eaten saturated fat. It's the natural food of humans. So we didn't have the processed foods or different kinds of fat until 100 years ago when they were invented. So if you're really going to start to talk to someone, you would you could make a logical argument, right? You don't even need nutrition science. You just would say, well, why for all of history, for however you believe how long humans were around, we'll just call it 99.9% of human history, we're eating one thing. And so why would it be that for to find health that we need to change our diet and do something that was only invented in the last 100 years? Right. So you can just do these simple thought experiments and understand why we already know what to eat. We know that we need real food. We know that animal foods have always been around, plant foods, whole plant foods. It's really that simple.
Are you somebody who used to be confident in your health, but you've fallen out of a good routine and you're looking to regain the confidence in your body and your health that you once had? What's up, you guys? I'm Nick Carrier, and I'm a body optimization coach and creator of the 10-week transformation that has transformed the bodies and the lives of over 700 people thus far. And I want to tell you about the 10-week transformation challenge. This is a challenge that will completely reset the way that you feel. It's going to completely change the way that you see yourself in the mirror and transform the way that you look at yourself in the mirror. We have a proven framework called the 5 steps to goal success that's going to allow you to set a very specific target, a very specific goal to be at by the end of the 10 weeks. Then we're going to set weekly goals. Then we're going to have the most badass workouts that there are. And you're going to completely transform the way you look and feel in just 10 short weeks. This isn't just trying to look different or trying to feel different or trying to eat healthier or trying to exercise more. This is a plan to do it at a super high level. And I'm the best fitness coach here in Nashville, Tennessee. And if you're in Nashville, you can join today at nickcarrier.com/10WT. If you're not in Nashville, we have a virtual version of the program as well that you can also find at nickcarrier.com/10WT. So click on that link below, and you guys, you will not regret it. There's over 700 people that have done it thus far. There have been people who have done it 10, 11, 12, 13 times because they've seen such great results and just can't stop. So go nickcarrier.com/10WT to get started today. How do you, from a nutritious standpoint, what is your understanding of the difference in quality between like grain-fed beef and like grass-fed beef? Do you believe that there is an important enough distinction in the nutritious quality of the meat that we need to be paying attention to it, or is it mainly just from a like environmental or ethical standpoint, or is it both? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's both. You definitely always want to get real grass-fed, grass-finished beef. It is good for you. It's good for the environment, better ethically. It's better in all accounts. But that also means if you can't afford, if you're really just not going to be able to acquire that good meat from a farmer's market or wherever else you can get it, then I do think that your next best bet is the normal grocery store beef. Because that grocery store beef, standard, feedlot beef is still going to be better than every other food that's in a box or package, and more nutritious than any other plant food too. Yeah, of course, yeah, have some plant foods with that meat, but you're not gonna get the nutrition you need without some animal foods, even if it's dairy or eggs. If you're vegetarian, I don't know. Good luck to you, but at least get a lot of dairy and eggs so you can get that animal nutrition. And so the nutrition differences are not super huge, but you definitely don't want to. Yeah, if you can afford it, there's many reasons from the fat content, omega-6, omega-3, right, to the grass-fed beef is better, to just avoiding any kind of things that go into them in the feedlots. Like they actually do they don't give them antibiotics within the last I forget how much within the last couple of months, so that you're not getting any antibiotics if you're getting normal grocery store meat. But they do use antibiotics to make them grow bigger and faster, right? This is just a common thing. They do just feed them low quality kind of leftover foods, soy mash, and I'd rather not eat like some sort of soy mash that have the cows eat some soy mash and some, get some antibiotics. I'd rather have it be grass-fed and finished if you can afford it.
Yeah, no, I love that. The second thing that I read out with regards to some of your beliefs is like processed foods, especially ones made with seed oils, refined grains, and added sugar, are the actual enemy. What is so damaging or wrong about these things, and why is it not just calories in, calories out? If you're not overdoing it on these things, then you're going to be fine. Why are these things so damaging to our bodies?
Yeah, there's two sides to it. You kind of brought them both up. So one is the just I don't want to call it toxic side. It's the stuff you want to avoid. There's certain things you want to avoid that could actively damage your gut or give your body things you don't want, environmental toxins. There's stuff, even the wrong kind of fats, right? The seed oils, it's a high polyunsaturated fat that could oxidizes very easily. It's just not the right fat you want. To having pesticides on the grains or any number of things. These sugar, flour, oil, these three added ingredients that most processed foods are made up of, they come with their own downsides, right? Beyond just the calories they have. And there's way more ingredients than just those three, right? There's all kinds of additives, preservatives, food coloring stuff that have their own unique problems. So definitely you want to avoid those for many reasons. But then there also is the side of, well, yes, you don't want to overeat. So the calorie story is complex. So it's way more than calories, because certain foods will basically just pretty predictably, universally cause people to overeat. Right.
Yeah.
And they're not, and there's also a difference between calories. There's nutrient calories and energy calories. So this is a big one. Like your nutrients are protein, vitamins, and minerals, right? And then the energy is mostly fat and carbs, even though fat has nutrients that are very valuable, but mostly we'll just call fat and carbs energy. So you really do want.
Explain that a little bit more for people. You said there's nutrient calories and there's energy calories. Talk to about that distinction.
Yeah. So that's just, food is just four things. It's protein, it's vitamins and minerals. So those are your nutrients. And then on the energy side, it's fat and carbs, right? So that's your four things. And you want more of the nutrients, which is protein, vitamin, minerals, and you want the right amount of energy, which is fats and carbs, getting through the day, right? So the problem is most people in the world are getting too little nutrients, right? They're getting not enough protein, not enough vitamins and minerals, and too much energy. The scales are tipped in the wrong way, right? That's why do you become fat? That's why. It's not because you ate too many calories, because there's different types of calories. That's the whole point, right? Nutrients are not the same as energy to your body. And even vitamins and minerals, they don't even have calories, right? It's like they are a non-caloric thing that are very important. So we can't just talk about calories, right? Because all these vitamins and minerals are non-caloric.
Yeah, I love the way that you break that down. The food is four things: protein, vitamins, and minerals, which are your nutrients, because protein isn't really used for energy, and then fats and carbs, which are energy. And like thinking about it in those four buckets, but kind of two buckets, I feel like can be really beneficial and informative to like understand and frame up the conversation of food.
It's the most important thing, because long term, this is what matters most. So yes, we're talking about other things, problems that come along with eating the seed oils or eating refined grains, or there could be all these unique problems to these smaller ingredients that make up foods that could harm our bodies in other ways. But the biggest factor is this nutrient to energy story, because over time, you need to eat the right amount of nutrients, the right amount of energy, or your body's going to become metabolically damaged, right? So all of these diseases of civilization are basically because of metabolic problems. They're really, most of them stemming from that insulin resistance, like even dementia, Alzheimer's, they're calling that type 3 diabetes. So that's basically an energy problem with your body, and your brain can't get the energy it needs. So that's again a metabolic problem. Cancer, Dr. Thomas Seyfried, you can listen to him do a lot of content on why cancer is a metabolic disease. Most cancers are a metabolic disease. They stem from metabolic problems. Heart disease, cardiovascular disease, obviously metabolic diseases. These are diseases of too much energy and not enough nutrients, right? Over time, if you give your body not enough nutrients and too much energy, it goes haywire. It doesn't know how to deal with that. This has never happened for human history. If you were just eating whole foods from your environment, your body had the right nutrients and the right amount of energy, and it had the right body composition, and it had the right amount of fat. I'm not saying everyone needs to be a six-pack model on a cover of a magazine, but we were all generally in the right body composition, right? In the right metabolic health. But when you start eating foods where this scale is completely tipped in the wrong direction, this is all processed foods. That's what processed foods are, is basically foods that have an insane amount of energy and not enough nutrients. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you keep eating those, the more you eat them, the more you're throwing this balance out of whack, the more and over time, some people can get away with it for longer than others. So that's another part, because people are like, oh, I don't know, bro. It's like bro science people. You're like, this guy, like, I know this bro in the gym, and he's just like, he eats Skittles and like he's all good. I'm like, yeah, he's also crushing a whole lot of protein and eggs, and he's, yeah, in the gym for 2 hours a day. So it's like, if you are in the gym for 2 hours a day, you can get away with some Skittles. It's fine.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Because that's you're actually balancing your nutrient to energy properly, right? A
Yeah.
lot of athletes can afford to eat some processed foods, especially when they're younger too. And then what happens? They get older, they stop playing sports, and they become overweight, and they get sick, and they get the chronic diseases. So this is also a long-term game. But long-term, if you're all, I mean, you really just need to focus on that nutrient to energy ratio of the foods you eat to have long-term health. And it's a little, I don't know. I mean, I guess we need to make it clear for people, because if we're just saying nutrient to energy, that might not mean a lot to people. But if we can go into deeper topics.
Yeah. Yeah. This is great. I love the nutrient to energy thought pattern when it comes to building out your meals and whatnot. Talk to me about if somebody is a vegetarian or something, and they think I can get vitamins and minerals from my fruits and veggies. I can get enough protein from beans and nuts and seeds and other legumes and grains and stuff like that. Like, what can I, if I'm a vegetarian, I'm asking, what can I not get from my plant-based diet that I need to be getting from meat?
Yeah, well, there's many things that are only in animal foods, like vitamin B12, the team iron, like the right kind of iron that we need. There's carnitine. There's some like DHA, like omega-3, certain types of omega-3s are fully formed, right? That you can get in seafood that aren't fully formed in, like, say, chia seeds or walnuts. People like to say, oh, there's so much omega. This is not the same stuff. And then also to the protein side, yes, I mean, you could kind of piecemeal together enough protein from beans and rice and nuts and all these different things, but these still are not the full spectrum proteins that we need. They're not bioavailable in the same way that animal foods are, and they don't have the full spectrum of amino acids. And so, yeah, I mean, you can get by. Yeah, it's then we're getting to story of thrive versus survive.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, yes, you can get by for a number of years on that, but I don't know. I know a lot of vegetarians actually that have been doing it for a long time, right? We talked about the hippie movement, 60s, 70s. I know a lot of people of a certain age who are now in their 60s and 70s who grew up in that era, and they're so proud of their vegetarian diet. They're on 6 medications, they're overweight, and they have, falling out hair, and they just don't look very good.
Yeah.
Right. It's just they're surviving. And then I don't want to be super anecdotal, but then you have guys like Mark Sisson, right, who's 70 and is in perfect health and ripped and thriving.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that is such a huge part of the conversation that doesn't get discussed enough, is like the survive versus thrive. Like, your podcast is not called mediocre human. Your podcast is called peak human. It's like oftentimes people make decisions because they see somebody else doing something, and they might be in good health right now, or they might just seem in good health right now, so I'm going to do what they're doing. But it's like, are they actually the optimized version of themselves right now, or are they actually the less optimized version of themselves? I think that's so many people miss that point of context, so I appreciate you drawing that out. The thing that I do want to make sure that we hit on is how the fourth point of ruminants, like cattle raised properly, help the soil and the environment. Like, how are we going to get to the point where we raise cattle more properly at a, well, I don't know if this is the right, I don't know. I don't want to get to the answer of how are we going to do it as a society, but how do we raise cattle more properly so that they are more beneficial to the soil environment? Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. So if they're left on the land, so all cattle are on the land for the first 2/3 of their life. They're in the cow-calf operation. They are eating the grass, and then the last third of their life is when most go to the feedlot. So the idea is to leave them on the grass the entire life and also manage them properly, which means moving them around and having a grazing plan. It's called uh, holistic uh, holistic agriculture, basically having a holistic management plan. And Alan Savory has brought a lot of this to light, but it needs to be more than just throw them out on the land. You need to have the plan, a grazing plan, and it helps them graze appropriately, right? So they're not overgrazing or undergrazing. So it's very possible we have millions of acres of land in the US. If you've ever looked down on a flight, there's a lot of land out there. And a lot of it is just monocrops too, right? There's just a lot of corn, wheat, and soy out there. And so that's our current system. And a lot of people are making a lot of money from this current system. So we can change that though, because there is enough land. It's just a slow change where we just shift the incentives for people to raise the animals properly, and we need less corn, wheat, and soy. We need less subsidies for corn, wheat, and soy, and it can happen. It's theoretically very possible. And it is happening. So it's slowly happening because of those incentives. So people, yeah. Well, really what drives a society is money and incentives, right? To make money usually. And so these big manufacturers have heard that people want grass-fed, and it's becoming more popular. Oh, grass-fed, grass-fed, grass-fed beef. So now they're spending more money on it, and more of these big corporations are actually putting money into doing more grass-fed operations. So it's good. It's actually working.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like obviously the incentivization is what is going to drive the ultimate long-term change for this. So why is it not just not bad for the environment when cattle are raised properly? Why is it actually beneficial for the environment?
Okay, cows, cattle, ruminants, bison, buffalo, even those giant megafauna that disappeared however many years ago, they co-evolved, right? These two, the grasslands and these big animals are just how nature works, right? Mm-hmm. They feed each other. So the ruminant animals get to eat the grasses, forages, whatever they may be. It's not all grass. And that stimulates the roots. It's kind of like, yeah, pruning a tree, a fruit tree, right? You want it to grow properly. And if you clip it at the right time, then it's optimal for the grass growth and the root growth. They're fertilizing the soil, right? Their manure goes back in, their urine goes back in to the soil, right? There's this whole idea that cows are taking up all the water. They're actually not. They're not alchemists. They're not just like stealing water and it just like disappears, right? These are natural cycles. They're not stealing carbon and it just disappears. Like there's a natural carbon cycle that's worked for all of history. Yes, they do burp up some methane, but that goes up into the atmosphere and then it breaks down into CO2 and then comes back down into the grasses that they're eating. It's just this harmonious cycle. To go on the little tangent with the CO2 or methane or whatever these emissions problem, the real problem is more the fossil fuels. Not that I'm completely against fossil fuels. There's a time and place for fossil fuels, and it's a side story. But if you have carbon that's deep in the ground and we're digging it up and then burning it, and then we're putting that in the atmosphere, that's a one-way street, right? That's going from something that's buried into the atmosphere. The cows just burping, that's a harmonious cycle that's not adding new carbon into the system, right? So that's the story. The land part is a story. How much land they're taking. Cattle on land is a good thing, right? Vegans like to say, oh, they're taking too much land. That's a good thing. If you have cattle grazing, like I said, it's fertilizing, it's doing their job. You're pruning these grass at the right time. That's actually helpful to the land. They're reversing desertification, right? There's big swaths of Africa that are turning into deserts, and with giant animals, these big ruminant animals that eat the grasses, they're turning that into healthy grasslands again, right? So they are helping the land.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, this has been great. I kind of want to, I feel like, kind of finish off with hearing how you approach your diet and your nutritional philosophy. So, like, what are, when you look at your nutrition or your diet on a daily basis, what are some foods that like you definitely want to get in, and how do you look at kind of like building out your plates, if you will?
Yeah, perfect ending, because this is the nutrient to energy stuff put into practice, right? Because in theory, yes, you want nutrients and you want the right amount of energy. So what does that mean? Well, yes, I do build meals for the day and also for the week and for the month on this concept. So I make sure to get enough. It's funny, people are like, cut your red meat, cut your eggs consumption. I'm like, how do I get more? How do I get more? I'm like maximizing my red meat and eggs. So a meal is always based around the animal protein. So yeah, whatever seafood, red meat, any kind of meat, and eggs is should be the foundation of each meal. And that comes along with a lot of nutrients. So you don't really have to, worry too much about every little vitamin and mineral if you're eating animal-based whole foods plus whole foods, right? And then I fill in whole foods on the side, right? And that I try to make it easy for myself. I mean, I have just a jar of pickles. I have a big thing of jalapenos. I have a big thing of sauerkraut. These are my staples. Like, they're just sitting there. They're not going to go bad. I can eat those for weeks and just throw them on the plate. Right? This is not hard stuff. If you just warm up some eggs or meat and then throw some pickles, sauerkraut, jalapenos, whatever, that's like the simplest thing. Like, if you just ate that, you would lose weight, be super healthy, and it would be cheap and it would be very easy.
Mm.
And then you could go from there, where you could add in fruit for dessert. I add in some raw milk, maybe some, yeah, quality dairy products, cheese, maybe some avocado. For dinner, maybe some more carbs, if you have sweet potatoes, some, even white rice. I cook white rice and bone broth. Right? These are pretty clean foods. Like, it's not complicated. Like, that's basically what I eat. Everything that I just listed is what, and again, fruit for dessert. It's a great dessert. I'm not afraid of carbs. Before I thought that the carbs were the enemy. And then I realized it was really just processed carbs are the enemy. And
Hmm.
so, yes, a lot of people, they go low carb, go keto, go carnivore, and lose a lot of weight. Absolutely. Because you're getting rid of so many bad carbs. That doesn't mean that carbs are the enemy, right? It's like
Yeah.
these whole foods, fruit, stuff like that. It's perfectly fine, especially once you get to your goal weight, right? You can add more of those in if you're active, stuff like that. So right there, that's a high nutrient to energy diet. That's right.
Yeah.
That's you get, if you're eating animal foods as your base plus whole foods on the side, you're almost guaranteed to get the correct nutrient to energy ratio, because that's just how nature works. This is just what we've always eaten. If you get any processed foods in there, that you're just screwing up that ratio, and
Yeah.
you're also getting all the bad things along with it. Like we
Mhm.
said, that you can get pesticides, colorings, preservatives, any number of other things, the wrong kind of fats from the seed oils. But really, you just eat delicious whole foods, including a lot of animal foods, and everything works out.
I love it. I love it. I love the simplicity of it. I did actually want to ask one other question because it's actually something I didn't know that much about. You you guys have a company called Nose to Tail, and you guys have basically skincare products that are animal based, grass fed skincare products. Talk to about like why should we be using grass fed skincare products over, even if maybe over maybe like better skincare products that are not filled with a bunch of stuff. Like, why is grass fed skincare products like a really good thing to be using?
Absolutely. Yeah. Your skin soaks up everything you put on it. It's basically like eating something. If you rub it on your body, it goes into your body. And you want, for one, the cleanest thing you can get, yes, without chemicals, but like there's some clean brands out there that are plant-based and clean. But we are not plants. We are not made up of soy. We're not made up of this type of fat. We're made up of saturated fat mainly, right? So we want to put those same fats on our skin. That's what we've always used, right? Back in the day, we didn't have access to any, clean plant-based products. We had animal fat. Oh, I guess we could have some coconut oil if you're in certain areas. You could, which is not bad, but that's also high saturated fat, right? So you want fats that your skin is made of, and that's just the healthiest thing you can get. So yeah, we do soap and hair care, deodorant. We do it all.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, we want to put on our skin what's already inside of our body. I love it. That's very simple to understand. Well, this has been really great today, Brian. I really appreciate it. You guys need to make sure you go follow Brian on Instagram at food.lies. And I've already mentioned a couple of times, they'll have the Food Lies docuseries coming out hopefully sometime soon. I know I'm really excited to dive in, and I feel like anytime one of these nutrition documentaries or docuseries comes out, I always dive in, but then I also try to do a little research on the back end to see how valid or invalid some of the things that they perceive to be true or tout to be true on there. But I'm just excited for you guys to get this side of things, because I feel like a lot of the documentary series are from the plant-based community, so I'm excited to get a viewpoint on this. Is there any other good place where people should go follow you? We got at food.lies to look out for the docuseries. Nose-to-tail.org is where you can find some of those grass-fed products. But is there any other good place?
That's about it. Yeah, I'm on Food Lies everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Yeah, Food Lies.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it today. This has been super informative around the importance of obviously animal nutrition. I really love, I hope everyone's like kind of the thing that they embed in their brain is like this nutrient to energy ratio, how there's protein, vitamins, and minerals, and then there's carbs and fats, and like thinking about building out our meal plans and our diets kind of around these things to keep us metabolically healthy today and in the future. So appreciate it, Brian. You guys be on the lookout for Food Lies docuseries. Make sure you follow him on Instagram. And if you want any grass-fed skincare products, make sure you go to nose-to-tail.org. But Brian, that's all we got today, man. Really appreciate it.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
What a fantastic episode. Brian provided some really powerful insights into why animal protein truly is essential for optimal health, and how understanding the difference between food as nutrients and food as energy can simplify your approach to eating. Before we wrap up today, don't forget, if you're listening on the Apple Podcasts app or on Spotify, make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss any of the future episodes. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below as well, because you guys, I promise you, we're going to continue to motivate you, to inspire you, and provide you with the tactical and practical approach in order to look and feel your best. But my three biggest takeaways from today's interview with Brian are the following. Number one, animal protein has been the #1 part of the human diet for 99.9% of human existence. Only as of the last 100 or so years are people claiming that it's not healthy. Number two, the difference between food as nutrients versus food as energy. Remember, food is four things. The first two of which are nutrients, your protein, your vitamins, and minerals. The second two are energy. Which are carbs and fats. That doesn't make carbs and fats inherently bad. That just means we want to ensure we eat the right ratio of nutrients and energy to be as healthy as we possibly can be. Number three, don't take everything you hear as fact. Do your own research as to what is true versus what's not. And a little bonus takeaway is kind of what we talked about there towards the end. Remember, there is a spectrum of health. There are people who are disease-free, and there are people who are living their optimal life. There are people who have mediocre health, and there's people who are living optimally healthy. Oftentimes, at surface level, you can't determine if someone is living a mediocre level of health or an optimal level of health. So always make sure that you have that level of context when you're seeing what other people are doing or hearing what other people are saying. But if you can do some of these things that Brian and I talked about today, you'll continue to get closer to the healthiest version of yourself, and ultimately closer and closer to your best you.